Yo, what's going on, guys? It's me, Noah here, and today I have a very exciting video. I am here to talk to you guys about my personal top 10 movies of 2024. The number 10 spot always feels tough. It always feels like it's the movie that you're disrespecting the most because it's at the bottom of the list, but just because it's at number 10 doesn't mean it's not a fantastic movie, because all of my top 10 movies are movies I consider to be fantastic movies. Coming in at number 10, we have The Wild Robot. Now, this one I really struggled with because on my list, The Wild Robot feels like it's in a good spot. I feel like I like number 10 for it. You know, I like this movie a lot. I thought it was so incredibly well done. The animation was absolutely stunning. It felt like watching a watercolor painting on screen. The movie gives off the vibes of something similar to like a WALL-E. And it's not that it's like a silent film whatsoever, similar to how WALL-E is for quite a lot of the runtime, but it's about a robotic character kind of understanding what it's like to love, and I would say finding humanity, but it's really not about that because the movie is about animals and so many things that are very realistic in that sense. Like the movie touches on death, and it touches on the idea of like a found family. And I just think that as an animated movie, as a movie that's made for kids, it also is just so smart and it has so much to say. It reminds me of like peak Pixar in my mind, which is crazy that I put it at number 10 because I genuinely think this movie deserves to be higher. If I had to pick right now based on the animated films that I have seen, I think The Wild Robot will win the Oscar for Best Animated Feature. It feels like that kind of movie. It's a movie that everybody appreciates because the story's incredible, the animation's incredible, and we can't forget the voice cast. It also has a stacked voice cast, and everybody performed. Basically, that's what I have to say about this movie. I don't want to get too much into spoilers for any of these 10 films here, but go check out The Wild Robot. If you have kids, I'm sure they're going to love it, and if you don't have kids, you'll probably cry too. This movie is heavy, but it's fun, it's amazing, it's just a great film. Coming in at number 9 on the list, A Complete Unknown. Now, one thing that I will say for sure about A Complete Unknown is that this movie, while being an incredible story and just a great movie overall, this movie is carried by its performances. Everybody in this movie is incredible. Like, this is a stacked cast working with one of the best working directors in the world. He knows how to get the most out of his actors, and there's just so much going on. Like, this strays away from a traditional biopic. Typically, you have, like, think about the Elvis movie or the Rocket Man movie. You have them starting as kids. You see what it's like for them to grow up and become the star that they became. Whereas Bob Dylan is a figure who just does not talk about his personal life. He does not give much information, and the movie didn't try to fill in the gaps. The movie just said, this is Bob Dylan, this is what he's like. So basically the movie just starts with Bob Dylan showing up, and it's about 4 years of his life when Bob Dylan started to become so famous and transition to the electric guitar period. And I'm a sucker for biopics. I loved Elvis, I love Rocket Man. One of my favorite movies ever is Ford vs. Ferrari, but specifically in the musical biopics, I really love them. I think that there's just something about it where taking like a musician that I was already a fan of and then watching, an actor I love portray them, it gets me excited about the movie. And Timothée Chalamet is outstanding in this movie. I think personally that he has a really good chance of winning the Oscar for lead actor for this film. He embodied Bob Dylan perfectly. Everything about his performance gave off Bob Dylan. The singing, the guitar playing, incredible. I don't know how Timothée Chalamet was able to recreate Bob Dylan that well. And then just his little mannerisms, the way he talked, the way he acted, it was so well done. It was incredible. Edward Norton was fantastic in this movie. He gave off a different type of feeling than Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan's kind of an asshole, at least in this movie, in this time period. He's in his early 20s, he's growing up, he just cares about his art. That's really all that matters. Whereas Edward Norton, his character is so he wants the good to come out. He just wants a good festival. He wants to be a dad. he's just, he's a guy that you end up feeling bad for. And I think Edward Norton really deserves a lot of praise for this role because he hasn't received much of that praise in the last few years. I know he was in Glass Onion. He was good. He wasn't incredible. This movie, I think, could get him an Oscar nomination for supporting actor. He was just absolutely phenomenal. Coming in at number 8, this one feels low as well for me because this movie was right at the top of my list when it came out. This is Deadpool and Wolverine. Now listen, number 8 for Deadpool and Wolverine is still an incredible number. This movie, the day I saw this movie, was mind-blowing. I was crying in the theater. I was freaking out. I was feeling like a little kid, and that is what this movie is designed for. This movie is designed for you to go to the theater. Just like Deadpool says, get your special sock ready. It is time for Deadpool to fight Wolverine. That was the point of that movie. It wasn't... The movie doesn't exist to tell you a story that is going to rock you to the core necessarily. It's going, we have Deadpool, we have Hugh Jackman, we have Ryan Reynolds, we have... this is a combination of two of the most iconic Marvel characters finally coming on screen together, and they succeeded so damn well in doing what they were trying to do. Obviously, this movie made over $1 billion, so it was a massive success for Disney and Marvel. But I just think the best part about Deadpool and Wolverine at the end of the day is just that they didn't pull their punches on trying to just show the audience, we know what you're here for. The villain is cool, not the greatest thing of all time. It's cool to connect to the TVA. The movie, the one thing I will say about the movie, it didn't have as much of a great, the grand scope of connecting to the entire MCU as I thought it would months ago, but that's really not a problem with this movie. At the end of the day, it does such a great job at being a love letter to the old Fox movies, which are, movies I grew up with, movies I've always loved watching, and I appreciate Deadpool and Wolverine for existing. I don't feel exactly the same way I did the day it came out, but that's kind of what happens with a lot of movies like this, movies that are meant to get you so excited the first time you see them, but it still makes my top 10 list, and it could be higher. I still love this movie. I go back and I watch it, and I think about the fight scenes are incredible, the music numbers are amazing, everything about this movie is just fun, and that's really what we're here for with a movie like Deadpool and Wolverine. Coming in at number 7 was a late addition to my top 10 list. My girlfriend and I sat down the other night and decided to watch The Substance. Now, The Substance is a wild movie. I don't want to spoil anything because I knew nothing about The Substance going into it. I knew that people enjoyed it, and that was all. And not having any idea what the story was about made this movie an incredible experience. So, without spoilers, the loose idea of this movie is there is an aging celebrity who basically gets her hands on a black market drug that will create a better version of herself, a younger version of herself. And that's all I'm going to go into the story. This movie is wildly entertaining. This story, it keeps going and it keeps you engaged through all of it. There are moments where you have no idea what's going to happen next. There are moments where you feel like you know exactly what's going to happen next, and then your expectations are subverted. And this movie is kind of a horror movie. My girlfriend does not like horror movies necessarily. She gets scared, but The Substance was when she was able to make it through because there wasn't crazy jump scares. It wasn't anything like that. It was really just... I don't even want to get into it, but if you like horror at all, if you like thrillers, if you like engaging stories, go check out The Substance. You will not be disappointed. This movie is absolutely phenomenal. Coming in at number 6 will be, without a doubt, the most controversial movie on this list. This one will be one that will have people shocked, and personally I don't care. If you want to go to my Letterboxd, I wrote the longest damn review ever for this movie when it came out because I thought it was so misunderstood. But coming in at number 6, we have Joker Folie à Deux. Now, this one is tough to talk about because in some ways I understand the problem that people have with this movie. If you were expecting to see something that a little more along the lines of Heath Ledger's Joker or a traditional Joker story, I understand why you came out of this movie going like, what the hell did I just watch? Now, personally, for me, I love the Joker movie. I have the script book of it. I've always loved that first film. It feels very very grounded, and obviously people talk about it being like a Taxi Driver, King of Comedy type of thing, and sure it is that, but in my mind it's just a great Elseworlds tale about a mentally ill man who, calls himself Joker, and it's not that this is not necessarily like the same thing that we're getting from a Heath Ledger, from a Mark Hamill Joker, but this is a mentally ill man, and the first movie shows you that, and it tells you that so many times, and that's what I took away from the first movie. So going into Folie à Deux, I expected to see the same theme. I was expecting to see a broken, mentally ill man dealing with the consequences of his actions of the first film, and Joker Folie à Deux is that movie. That was what I got. I got what I expected. And now a lot of people don't love musicals. I am a big musical fan. I really love musicals in general, and Joker Folie à Deux is something that is like half of a musical. It doesn't fully commit the same way that other ones do, but it has musical numbers, it has sequences. I bought the vinyl. I'm a fan of this movie. Just everything about it, I don't know. The story is not like a high intense action. It's more of a courtroom drama. It's a sad story. Like, this is a depressing movie at the end of the day. It's one that will make you sit and think like that's not what I was expecting necessarily. And I, for myself, felt that it was very powerful. I felt this movie moved me in ways that I wasn't expecting it to, in ways that the first one did not. And overall, I appreciate greatly that this movie exists as what it is. I'm glad that it is not a Heath Ledger ripoff, and that it's not just trying to be like regular Joker. Let's just make an easy sequel. Like, no, they really went off the rails for this one and created what I would consider to be a failed masterpiece in the way that A Babylon is. I love that movie from 2022. People just didn't get it at the time, and I think that it's one of those movies that as time goes on, people will revisit it. And look, I'm not saying that if you disliked the movie that your opinion is wrong. You have every right to dislike this movie. I just believe that this movie was misunderstood and people were expecting something different going into it. Alright guys, we have reached the top 5 movies on my list. These are the ones I am the most excited to talk about, because each and every one of them are incredible in different ways, and these are probably 5 of the most different movies I've had in my top 5 list before. So starting out at number 5, going 5 to 1 the same way we have been, number 5 is a movie called Sing Sing. Now, I heard nothing about this movie except for a couple people saying that this could generate some buzz in the awards season, and I decided before I make my top 10 list, I really need to see this movie, and I am so glad I did, because this was one of the best movies I have seen in a long time. This movie, without spoilers, is basically about an innocent man who's in a maximum security prison, and he is part of like a theater musical group that puts on plays. They've done Shakespeare, they've done pretty much everything, and it's basically just a movie about that. It's such an incredible story. The feelings this movie makes you feel, it's powerful. This is a movie about men in a prison who kind of restore their faith in humanity by being together and by putting on a show. And I don't really know how to describe this movie other than it feels incredibly real. There are moments where the scene is so struck by dialogue, you are focused on characters talking to each other, and they will be talking about things that are important, things that matter, things that if you yourself were in this situation, you would be feeling miserable. How would you deal with being in a maximum security prison as an innocent man? It is a tough subject matter, and this movie, as I was watching it, I was feeling moved. It was incredible. I was loving it, and I already knew that this movie would be in my top 10. I knew it immediately because it was just such a great story. But the best part about this movie, one of the things that makes this movie so special, the reason I put it in my top 5 list for sure, on top of being an incredible film. So I know that I've said a lot of other movies on this list had stacked casts, but this movie is something different, because Colman Domingo leads this film and gives an Oscar-worthy performance. He is absolutely phenomenal. But the supporting cast here, on another level because there are some actors in this movie that I thought were downright phenomenal. Clarence Macklin, the main other one, was so great. And I found out after watching this movie that the supporting cast of actors in this film playing the other inmates were not just actors, they were actually the real life inmates playing themselves. And this changed how I looked at this movie because this film was already a top movie of the year. This would have been in my top 10 for sure. But then I find out that this movie took the real men that the story is about and cast them as themselves, and they were so good. This movie, it's different. There's something about this movie that it's not like this every day. There's not every day that you see a movie where the whole entire cast are playing themselves and they're as good as they are and they're telling a story as powerful as they are. I don't want to spoil the ending. I don't want to spoil anything about this movie. But go and watch Sing Sing. Do yourself a favor. This is a phenomenal movie in every single way. Absolutely amazing. Coming in at number 4, we have a movie that personally I would have never expected to make my top 10 list, let alone top 5 at number 4. But number 4, we have Wicked. Wicked was a movie that I obviously knew was coming out. I've seen The Wizard of Oz in my life, but I've never seen the Wicked play. My sister has, and I know she liked it, but I've never seen it. Even though I do like musicals, I never saw it. And going into it, I didn't think it would be something I'd particularly like. I like musicals, but I don't know. I wasn't vibing with the trailers too much or anything like that. I don't even know if I really fully saw them. I was also a bit worried about Ariana Grande in one of the lead roles, and a lot of people say, oh, well, she's been an actor before. I don't exactly give the most credit to people who have only starred in Disney Channel shows as like teenagers, because the acting in those, they're not on par with, the other movies, say, I've talked about on this list. But Wicked absolutely blew me away in basically every single way. Watching this movie, I was having moments of realization of, wow, this is a very interesting story. Wow, the performances are amazing. Wow, they really know that this is a musical on Broadway that they're adapting into a film. They're not holding back. Everything about it just kept working and working and working. And the main thing that makes this movie work are the main two actresses. Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande were both phenomenal in this movie. They both deserve awards for their performances, and that's where I was stunned personally. Like I said, I didn't think Ariana Grande would be able to carry a role like Glinda and be a main actress in a movie of this like magnitude, and she was incredible. I think Ariana Grande actually has a very good chance at winning the Oscar this year. She'll be nominated. She has to be. She was incredible. She was funny. She did the dramatic stuff. She played a character. I did not know the story, so I did not know, what their character dynamics would be like between the two of them, but there were certain songs where it worked so well. And I want to talk a little bit about Cynthia Erivo because I've seen her before in a couple things, and I thought she was good in other things. I've never watched a performance and been blown away by her. Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba was phenomenal. She was amazing. I came out of this movie and my first thought was like, I genuinely think right now that Cynthia Erivo is my top contender for the Oscar for lead actress. I think she did everything that she needed to do in this movie to be worthy of winning an Oscar. The vocal performance was outstanding. There was multiple moments where I was sitting in the theater thinking like, I can't believe I'm seeing like a vocal performance of this level in a film like this. And she gave off the emotion. There's one specific scene, I'm sure if you've seen the movie you know what I'm talking about. There's a scene in the movie where they very, very smartly completely remove any background music and they let the scene be very silent, which is a total flip for, of course, a musical, which is full of dancing and full of crazy sequences. This scene is completely bare of any background noise of audio. It is just silent, powerful, and incredible. And Wicked will win awards. It will win plenty of awards, I'm sure, and it deserves them. I know a lot of people are talking about the cinematography. Honestly, I thought this movie looked incredible. There are moments, sure, where the lighting isn't the greatest thing ever, but everybody on Twitter these days becomes, I know how cinematography works. I know how lighting works. I know that when I saw Wicked, I went to the movie theaters, I watched this movie, and I thought it was incredible, and that is why it is my number 4. Now, number 3 is one that I had on my most anticipated list of 2024, but it was towards the bottom because I was not confident that this movie would be as amazing as it is. And coming in at number 3, we have Transformers 1. Transformers 1 blew my mind. This movie, a lot of people didn't see this movie. It was the lowest grossing, the worst performing movie in the entire Transformers franchise. And it makes me really upset to say that because I have been a massive Transformers fan since I was 6 years old. Now, this is not everything, but this is just a few of the random toys I have from Transformers, and some of these are from literally 2007. This one is literally from 2007. Some of them are not. I love Transformers. Transformers 1, I was very excited about an animated movie with the idea of, like, there are no humans. This is about the origin story of Optimus Prime and Megatron, and this is going to be set on Cybertron, and I was so excited for this movie from the premise, from what the idea of it was, and then the trailer dropped. When the trailer for this movie came out, I sighed, I closed my eyes, and I got sad. Basically, the trailer for this movie sucked. The trailer it didn't completely destroy the movie, but I think that this destroyed the idea that people would go watch this in theaters. The trailer, if you're like 6 years old, you would think it's funny. They took everything from the movie that was slightly childish or slightly comedic, and the movie is not completely filled with this. This movie is a much more mature toned film than I would have expected, but everything that is slightly childish from this film they took and threw in the trailer, and that was all they did. They did not bother to even slightly give off like this movie has real mature themes to it, and I think it killed the movie in terms of performing well. And I still saw the trailer and thought I'm going to go see this movie because I personally love Transformers. But if you don't like Transformers and you watch that trailer and you're not 5 years old, like, you're not going to care about watching this movie. And it's such a shame because sitting in the theater watching it, there was multiple times in the movie where certain things would happen that made me think, like, this movie is a lot more serious than I thought. This movie's a lot more dark than I thought. And everybody that I've watched it with has had the same thoughts. Like, wow, this movie was like serious and it was incredible, and the story was so well done. Every single Transformers movie from Michael Bay's 2007 movie to Rise of the Beasts, so that includes all 5 of Michael Bay's and then Rise of the Beasts. The only one that does not get included in this group right here is Bumblebee. It's the only one without Transformers on its title. All of those other movies are about the Decepticons or some bad Transformers are coming to get some sort of MacGuffin device that will therefore help us win some war. Every single movie is like that. You have the Allspark, you have the Matrix of Leadership, you have the things from the moon in Dark of the Moon. Anyways, it's all about let's get these devices so we can win this thing. Transformers 1, sure, there is the Matrix of Leadership, there's a slight MacGuffin, but it's not the point of the story. The point of the story is Orion Pax and D16 are friends that are falling down different ideologies and paths towards what they believe is the right way to, like, lead a society, I guess, or to be not a person, but to be a being, to be a sentient being like they are. And at the end of the day, that story is phenomenal. That is the best story that they have ever told in Transformers, in my opinion. This is without a doubt the best Transformers movie in my mind. I still have so much nostalgia for 2007 and the Michael Bay films in general, but this one is just the best. The animation is outstanding. I think this should win the Oscar for Best Animated Film, not just because of my bias, but because it just tells a mature story. It has amazing voice acting. Chris Hemsworth was one of the things that made me so nervous for this movie, and man, this guy killed it. He does not sound like Chris Hemsworth. He sounds like Orion Pax turned into Optimus Prime, but like millions of years before we know him as Peter Cullen, and that is exactly what it should have been. So Transformers 1 has made my top 3. Transformers 1 is one of the best movies of the year, and Transformers 1 is criminally underrated. Coming in at number 2, I am so excited to have this movie at number 2. This is Nosferatu. Now, I will be the first to admit I'm not the biggest Robert Eggers fan in general. There have been, I would say, 3 super prominent directors that have come out within the last decade in horror that I would pick as the 3 best. I'd say most people probably would too. That would be Robert Eggers, Ari Aster, and Jordan Peele. Now, I'm a massive Jordan Peele fan. I think that his 3 films so far are all super great. I love Get Out especially. Ari Aster, I was also not a big fan of Ari Aster. I like Hereditary. I think it's an unsettling, eerie movie. I'm not the biggest fan of Midsommar. I like it. I don't love it. And then I saw Beau is Afraid, and that movie blew me away. I love Beau is Afraid. It's one of my favorite movies. And I feel the exact same way about Robert Eggers here. I thought The Witch was it was a great movie. I watched it and I was like, yeah, like this feels like a great movie. I just don't have much desire to go and revisit it too often. The Lighthouse, though, is my favorite of the 3 that he released before Nosferatu, and that's so much to do with the performances. It's 2 incredible actors working just together the whole time. It's a wild movie. Love it. The Northman is also a really good movie, but that one's just, knowing that there was studio interference, it wasn't exactly what Robert Eggers wanted. Yeah, I like that movie. It's not my favorite. But Nosferatu was one I was really excited for because obviously it's the story of Dracula. It's a different kind of story than he's done so far, and it's a classic tale. And watching this movie with my friends, we just went and saw it about a week ago, and wow, this movie is just phenomenal in every single way. I think Robert Eggers as a director has such a specific style, like his period piece films, his cinematography, and he's used the same cinematographer through all of his movies so far, so there is definitely a feel there, but his feeling to his movies are intense. Like, this movie had me hooked from the very first scene instantly. It's just such a vibe, this movie, such a gothic, like, I don't even know how to really describe it properly. I'm still letting this movie sit with me, but everything is great. The performances are quite, like outstanding. Lily Rose Depp was way better than I kind of thought she would be. I watched her in The Idol. It's the only thing I've seen her in, and I did not like that show. That was a very, very bad show. She wasn't terrible in it, but she was not great. But she was amazing here. She was phenomenal. She felt very realistic, and her character had so much to do with her body and like with being possessed, and she killed all of that. It was really great. I was not expecting Nicholas Hoult to be as much of a main character as he was, because I've not seen the original Nosferatu, but I love Nicholas Hoult. This guy's an underrated actor in every single way. I cannot wait for him to get more praise as Lex Luthor, but he was amazing here. He was phenomenal. He really gave off the emotions that his character needed to in these scenes. And then obviously Willem Dafoe and Aaron Taylor Johnson as well, I thought were really great. But the biggest performance in this movie that caught me off guard, which I was not expecting for it to catch me off guard, was Bill Skarsgård. So he's played Pennywise. He's played multiple roles where you can really see him kind of change his persona. He's not playing Bill Skarsgård. He is really one of those actors that likes to bend himself to the material that's given. And I was expecting to... Like, I knew he would be playing Count Orlok. I knew that would be what he was doing. But when I tell you that this is genuinely unrecognizable, it's actually mind-blowing, the level of work that Bill Skarsgård did to make this character feel like a completely original character. So outside of the prosthetics and the makeup they were doing, like, and I know that they did not show any of what Count Orlok looked like in the trailers, and they did not show his voice either. So if you have not seen this movie, just go and watch it. Don't let that get spoiled for yourself, because I won't tell you what he looks like, and I won't tell you what he sounds like necessarily, but what I will tell you is Bill Skarsgård is seriously unrecognizable here. It is outstanding. From the first scene that you see him and you hear him, I wondered is this Bill Skarsgård? Is this actually him? And it is, and it's incredible. And the whole story itself is just really engaging, and it does an amazing job at telling a classic tale in its own way. There are moments in this movie, certain scenes that just had me hooked, like so hooked. Me and 2 of my friends who saw this movie together, we sat in the theater for like half an hour after it ended. The lights came on. We just sat there for like 30 minutes at like 1:30 in the morning after we finished watching it, just talking about how amazing this movie was. I'm sure the movie theater staff probably was like wanting us to leave or whatever, but anyways, we had to do it. The movie was amazing. We literally just sat there and talked. Such an incredible experience, and that is why Nosferatu is my number 2 movie of the year. Now, for my number 1 movie of the year, this is a movie that when I saw it, I was actually mind blown. I thought it was one of the most amazing movies I've ever seen in my life, and to this day, I still feel that way. This is still one of the most incredible movies I've ever seen in my entire life. Coming in at number 1 on my top 10 movies of 2024 is Dune Part 2. This movie is outstanding. Now, I love the first Dune movie. I wasn't actually the most big fan of it when it came out. It took me a while of revisiting it. The first time I watched it, I was really tired. I wasn't exactly in the mood. And then once I revisited Dune from 2021, I started to get this appreciation for it that I just never thought I would. And I started watching it over and over again and over and over again. And I ended up watching it so many times that I basically like forced my brain into this like I cannot wait for part 2. And they re-released Dune 1 in theaters about a month before part 2, and my girlfriend had never seen it, so I decided let's go see it. She liked it, and it just got me so much more excited for part 2. And then the day that part 2 came out, went to the theater and was just blown away. This movie is seriously outstanding in every single aspect. The directing from Denis Villeneuve is... I've used the same words over and over again. I don't even know what the proper word to use is, but it is the most Oscar-winning, deserved direction I've seen in a movie in so long. Like, Christopher Nolan deserved it for Oppenheimer. Everybody knew that. And I think that Denis Villeneuve is getting seriously snubbed by a lot of the major awards categories that have come out so far and the nominations, because Dune is not getting what it deserves. And Dune came out earlier in the year, so I think people are forgetting that this is like a monumental movie. This is a movie that does things that we don't see every year. The Dune movies that Denis Villeneuve has made so far feel so much like what Peter Jackson was doing with Lord of the Rings that I think that Dune is just so fundamentally and just so underappreciated right now. It's crazy because this has a 4.4 on Letterboxd. Everybody in the world was talking about Dune Part 2. Everybody in the world was yelling silence and I had Paul Mordy. This was like a trend. This was a massive thing, and I feel like people now are just kind of forgetting about it because it came out earlier in the year, which is absurd because this movie is just... I don't want to spoil it because it's such an incredible story, but there is a moment in this movie where the story shifts and the tone changes, and Timothée Chalamet's performance as Paul Atreides drastically changes. And I think that from that moment on in the movie, I realized that I was watching what would be this generation's masterpiece of sci-fi storytelling. And I just thinking about this movie gets me excited and just in my feels for just filmmaking and storytelling. Like this... Everything about it is amazing. I think this movie deserves to win Best Picture and Best Director and Best Score. Don't talk about the fact that Hans Zimmer is not allowed to be in contention for an Oscar this year because it has soundtrack that was used previously. Talk about the billions of times John Williams has been nominated for Star Wars and Indiana Jones, all the way up to a couple years ago, last year with Dial of Destiny. It's absurd. This movie deserves so much, and I didn't think that talking about my number 1 movie of the year would be me ranting about why is it not getting enough love. Because this movie is so popular. This is one of the most popular movies that I've ever seen come out. And I just want it to get the love it deserves. And Josh Brolin, Austin Butler, Zendaya, Timothée Chalamet, Javier Bardem, Rebecca Ferguson, Stellan Skarsgård. Everybody in this movie is like outstanding. Like there could be Oscar nominations in every single category. I think... Personally, there's 4 that really deserve to be Oscar nominated. I think that would be Javier Bardem. I think that would be Rebecca Ferguson. I think Timothée Chalamet and Austin Butler also deserve the other 2. I think those 4 characters in this movie are so good that like they deserve Oscar nominations. I don't think Timothée Chalamet will get it because I think he is, like I said, I think he is in contention for A Complete Unknown, and you can't get Oscar nominated twice in the same year for 2 different films. Although I think that Paul Atreides in this movie, Timothée Chalamet gives off one of the best performances I've ever seen in a movie. I thought he was outstanding. But nonetheless, I still think Austin Butler, Rebecca Ferguson, and Javier Bardem deserve Oscar nominations, and I just don't know if it'll happen. It's upsetting. But this movie, everything from the story to the visuals to the music to the performances, everything is outstanding. and I am a big fan. My sister just got me this for Christmas. This is the knife from the movie May That Knife Chip and Shatter. This is an incredible film. I hope you guys have enjoyed me talking for this long about my top 10 movies of 2024. If there are any movies on your personal list that did not make my list, or movies on my list that did not make your list, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to have a little discussion with you guys. I know this is also something a little bit different from what I normally do in terms of videos, so if you do like this, let me know, because I'm so open to doing videos like this. This is one of my favorite things. I think about this kind of stuff all the time, lists and ranking movies and all this kind of stuff, and I could talk about this all day. I also have a top 10 TV series ranked list, so if you would like to see that, let me know, and I will get right into that, because there were some absolutely incredible seasons of television in 2024 as well. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that you enjoyed listening to me rant. And if you did, subscribe, hit the like button, because there is so much more we can talk about and that we can do on this channel here. I hope you guys had a great day. Let me know what your list is in the comments. Let me know what your favorite movies of the year were. Anyways, guys, I hope that you all have a wonderful New Year's. I hope everybody had a great Christmas. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Have yourself a great day.